Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the Foundations metagame. Today we're taking a look at a white, black and red or mardu colored Reanimator deck, and our game plan is very simple. We've got these 8 very powerful creatures that we're trying to discard from our hand into the graveyard, and then we can get them back for just 4 mana using either Zombify from Foundations or Rite of the Moth. Rite of the Moth can also be flashed back for 6 mana, the downside being that it gets our creature back with a finality counter on it, so if it dies it would get exiled, but our creatures provide immediate value. In the case of Atraxa, finding a ton of cards among the top 10. We also have a very good spread of card types for Atraxa, and then Valgavoth has built-in protection, so it's pretty tricky for most decks to remove since it requires them to sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, and then Valgavoth can provide even more value if the opponent's stuff dies or gets discarded. And then looking at the rest of our deck, we also have a lot of cheap interaction, some of the best removal spells in the format. At 1 mana there's Cut Down, and then Torch the Tower can also be bargained every now and then, since we have artifacts and enchantments we can sacrifice to it. And then we've got even more removal at 2 mana with Bitter Triumph, can destroy creatures or planeswalkers, and as an additional cost we either pay 3 life, or what we prefer is discarding a card from our hand, so we can put Atraxa and Valgavoth in the graveyard. And then we've got more discard outlets at 2 mana with a Split Skin Doll, which lets us draw and then discard, so we get an extra look before deciding what to get rid of. And if we control another creature with power 2 or less, we simply draw a card when it enters. So the first one we're often going to use as a discard outlet, and then future copies just draw a card, which is great, as we also get a 2/1. And it's also an artifact creature, so we can sacrifice it to Torch the Tower, can find it with Atraxa as our artifact, and then still find a different creature. And it also counts as an extra type to enable Delirium on Fear of Missing Out. This one, when it enters, first discards a card and then draws. Can be a little bit better if you're empty-handed, because then you just straight up draw a card, but otherwise you have to make the decision before seeing your extra card. And then with Delirium enabled, allows us to untap a creature and attack a second time, so it can be especially powerful once we reanimate our large creatures, so they can attack twice, and with those huge life linkers that can often end the game on the spot, or at least gain enough life where we don't need to fear a crackback. And then at 3 mana, just 2 copies of Liliana of the Veil, adds Planeswalker as another type for Delirium and Atraxa, and also gives us a discard outlet with a +1, while giving us more removal with a -2. And then at 4 mana, just 8 reanimation spells, so our deck is very one-dimensional, but also very streamlined and should add to the consistency of the reanimation plan. And then the mana base can be configured in a number of ways. We've got a good mix of fast lands entering untapped early, as well as the surveil lands, which let us surveil 1, so that can be another way of cycling through the deck, maybe putting some of our big creatures in the graveyard if we get lucky. And then we have the Verge in black-red, and then some more pain lands, hopefully entering untapped on turn 4, so we can still Zombify or Rite on curve. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand. Got a good mix of lanes, discard outlet, reanimation spells, and Atraxa to reanimate. Facing blue-black. And another Atraxa in graveyard, doesn't hurt. So just looking for lane number 4. Here I'm sort of tempted not to play the doll yet, in case your opponent's got Fairy Mastermind to play in response. So I'm actually fine just playing a tapped Backstreet, keep up Cut Down. And then next turn I can still go doll plus 1 mana interaction. Put another big creature in the graveyard. And at least with Rite of the Moth, we can also flash it back should we face multiple counter spells. Opponent did not have an end of turn play. Because yeah, last turn it would have been bad if our opponent goes end of turn creature, attack, and then maybe ninjutsu a Kaito, for instance. For now, it's gotta be doll, keep up Blackleaf Cliffs, so I guess I can wait to play it. And another Atraxa. Okay, so still waiting on lane 4. Needs to be untapped as well. And our opponent did have a Drowner after all. Are we thinking Cut Down or Torch against that deck? I think we keep Torch to answer Enduring Curiosity, since we can sack a doll to deal 3 damage. And for now we'll just Cut Down while the coast is clear. And then Doll just draws a card, so that's still a good play. Okay, and then next turn we can go for it. And if they Enduring Curiosity, I'm happy to torch. It's going to be an Airtie Resurrected, so that also could have countered the right for what it's worth. Opponent runs it out anyway. And destroys the Doll. I get to draw. So yeah, that's all fine and good by me. And then we'll see if they have Enduring Curiosity they want to flash in. Or is this Kaito? Alright, fair enough. So it will have hexproof, so I cannot take it out with a Bitter Triumph. But now the coast is clear to reanimate.
Your secrets didn't stay hidden for long.
Then we probably start with Atraxa to get that immediate value. Alright, opponent does still have 2 mana. So I guess they could still have a counter. But they also have Airtie back in hand, which they can now use as another counter spell. So maybe step 1 is attack Kaito with a Doll, because then Torch the Tower can finish it off as well. And we might see them play another Drowner. And then if they have a counter spell, it's most likely unless I pay 2 mana. So in that case, it doesn't matter how I sequence, since they wouldn't be able to counter my Torture Tower anyways. And yeah, Atraxa as we've said. Right, that works. And then find untap land, Planeswalker, sorcery, instant creature, artifact. And I'll fire this off now. Anoint exiles our Doll. Kaito down. And can discard Volgavoth to hand size. Could try and keep one in hand in case we need to hardcast it, should our opponent find Graveyard Hate. I guess we also have triple Rite of the Moth, so maybe one of those can go. And triple Bitter Triumph is potentially overkill. Opponent passes with Airtie available. Can go to attackers. Probably see a removal on Atraxa. Now we get to connect. In which case, what do we prefer? Could flash back a Rite, or I can cast it and then still have 2 mana available. And we're fine if this gets countered. I suppose there's a small chance our opponent is playing the 5 mana cover-up to wipe the board, and then it could maybe extract all the Rite of the Moth out of my deck. Which could have been bad, but opponent just runs out Airtie. Counter we get to draw. And a Fear of Missing Out looks good. Ditching maybe a land or a Doll. Let's go with a land. So Delirium is enabled. Opponent's got a different Kaito.
This fight is already over.
Atraxa cannot block. Take 3. Our opponent picks up Airtie once again, so they can cast it for a 3rd time.
Sometimes the winning move is to sit and watch.
But yeah, opponent scoops it up, Fear of Missing Out, can attack twice at the very least, and we still have plenty more to reanimate. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We're just missing a creature to reanimate, but for now we can keep. Our mana's gonna be perfect. Facing a red-green aggro. And then Zombify. I don't necessarily need to keep. 1 Rite of the Moth should suffice. And now we did kind of reveal our hand in a way. Our opponent knows what we're trying to do. Turn to Manifold Mouse is a great start. So probably have to Bitter Triumph as opposed to play a doll. But at least we've got a few of those now. And then green could indicate protection spells like Snakeskin Veil. So it makes me more likely to want to Bitter Triumph now while they're tapped out. And yeah, I guess we'll go for Manifold Mouse. Next turn, if we minus a Liliana, we can play around Hexproof. Alright, opponent's got the Innkeeper's Talent next. Do they also have a pump spell? Looks like it. Yeah, that's gonna hurt. 7 damage, and then 5 more if we remove the Heartfire hero. But I think we still wanna do that here. So it was definitely a close call between destroying the hero or the Double Striker, although Monstrous Rage with Double Strike is also no joke. Opponent just leveling up the talent. We can plus Liliana. 1 right can go. And then I'll play the doll to try and get us closer to our target. Alright, Cut Down I could keep available. Might be better than Bitter Triumph at this point. Even though there are some larger creatures our opponent could find. Can still respond to the +1 counter being placed. Alright, Heartfire hero. And then in response to the Valiant trigger, we can Cut Down. Also good to wait for the Valiant trigger so they can Valiant in response. Monstrous Rage, alright, that will save the Heartfire hero. And then now, if I were to minus Liliana, we just die, but what we can do is plus, now that we top-decked Volgavoth, bring it back. And Volgavoth means if the Heartfire hero dies, it gets exiled, so it doesn't deal any damage to us. So we'll see if our opponent realizes. And then next turn we can minus 2 Liliana. So yeah, just at the right moment. And our opponent explodes. Yeah, they know what's happening. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hand's lacking interaction and a discard outlet. But we can surveil a bunch in the early turns, likely finding a discard outlet by the time we need it. So, yeah, not a perfect hand, but I think it's still functional. And then don't need an extra land here. Liliana can function as a discard outlet. And then I'll take a Bitter Triumph. 3 mana. And a Slasher, so that's certainly worth taking out. If we minus a Liliana, we'll have it in play to plus next turn. And this way we don't die to the Demon combo. Could have also kept a Bitter Triumph to maybe take out a Bloodletter at instant speed. Opponent's got their own Liliana, which is pretty good when facing cards like Volgavoth. So we may need to Bitter Triumph their Liliana first. For now, ditch 1 Volgavoth, can ditch Atraxa next. Yeah, getting back an Atraxa in the face of a Liliana is certainly better. Opponent gets rid of Annoyance. I mean, if I get back Atraxa, I'm very likely to find another reanimation effect. So it's not that bad. But then our opponent can just minus Liliana 2 turns in a row. So that doesn't seem worth it to me. I'm okay with them plussing another turn, however. So I don't need to Bitter Triumph Liliana now. Mishra's Foundry could also be sacrificed if we minus Liliana again. Opponent's got another slasher. Curious to see if they plus. They do. Gets rid of another annoyance. And then now, may as well discard Valgavoth. Now there's still a risk here if our opponent top decks a Bloodletter. Could also get back Valgavoth first and then minus so the slasher gets exiled. But I think we're going for Atraxa in case our opponent top decks another Liliana. Alright, so I'm glad they sacked the slasher, because they could have activated Mishra's Foundry and sacrificed it instead, and then if I only have one blocker, our opponent can still top deck Bloodletter and then connect with one of the slashers to win the game. And then we found Cut Down and an untapped black source. And then another reanimation spell, artifact, enchantment, creature. So we got it all. And then I could cut down the slasher now, I could wait. Alright, opponent's got a land. And yeah, opponent's gonna scoop it up, there's just too much value in hand. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is missing both something to reanimate as well as a reanimation spell. If we were missing just one of them, I could keep as is. I think we try again. And this is better. We found Valgavoth, which we can discard. And then maybe get rid of Torture Tower, since it doesn't look like I'm going to cast it turn 1. Although I could keep it up turn 1, turn 2 go Doll, and turn 3 play Tapped Theater. So in that case, maybe Bitter Triumph is not needed. But if we don't need to torch on turn 1, I'll probably play the tap land. A red-white, and a Swiss Spear. Yeah, that's probably worth taking out. And then we can go back-to-back dolls. The first one discards, the second one just draws. So it's good value. Now we do have to watch out if our opponent's playing a burn deck. Cards like the Screaming Nemesis can prevent us from gaining life with our finishers. So that's where a card like Bitter Triumph can maybe answer the Nemesis before they damage it. Opponent could still be on an Aura deck as opposed to straight up burn, as they play another Challenger. So I doubt our doll is going to be able to trade off here, so I'll just take it. Right, opponent's content getting in for 4. And then now I do think it makes more sense to keep a Bitter Triumph. Fear of missing out is another redraw, but if we can just top deck a reanimation spell, that would be better. So now what we can do is block, maybe bait out a pump spell and then Bitter Triumph. Although it's also possible they have a protection spell in hand, like a Shard Mage's Rescue. Ethereal Armor main phase. So yeah, it does feel like they have a rescue in hand. Still tempted to Triumph in response to the Valiant trigger, in case they reveal a Shard Mage's Rescue with Valiant, which would make it worse. Keep the untapped land. And yeah, there's the rescue. At least they've already triggered Valiant on this Challenger, and I can decide to chump it to save myself 7 damage. Which does seem worth it, even though that means I don't get to straight up draw a card next turn. So yeah, we're definitely running out of time here to find a reanimation spell. Now it looks like we're gonna play double doll. Alright, let's see if we get to draw. We do, and there's Zombify. So, if we get to untap, we can bring back Volgavoth. Could still end up getting exiled by Shelter by Ghosts. Opponent fires it off now. So if they have a second one, we're just dead. For now, I've got a chump. And a Boros Charm for double strike. Yeah, that'll get it done. Alright, GG's. Couldn't quite get there in time. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with what looks like a keeper. Got lanes, discard outlets, reanimation effects, and things to put in the graveyard. Still needs a couple extra lanes, including white mana. And a Novice Inspector, so it's the go wide Convoke deck. Find another reanimation spell. I'll start with Fear of Missing Out, so the doll can maybe just draw a card. And found our white mana. So just need land 4 now. And does our opponent have Gleeful Demolition to make goblin tokens? That would be their best play. And they've got it. So they could technically already convoke a Knight Errant here. Frontliner first, but no convoke. Still kind of a scary spot if our opponent plays a Recruiter next turn to pump the team. But may as well play the doll, get a card deeper to try and find an untapped land. Ended up drawing a bunch of fast lands instead. Opponent attacks. And yeah, we'll make some trades. That works. Now a Gecko. So not your typical Convoke deck. Opponent loots. And plays another Inspector. Alright, so cut down the draw, so this turn we get to both Triumph and cut down. Could do it now just to maybe prevent them from convoking. I guess I'm most likely gonna end up doing so anyways. I'll cut down, maybe keep up Bitter Triumph at instant speed. And then we'll also have Delirium enabled for what it's worth, if we discard a land here. Opponent attacks. I'll block. Opponent wants to go to damage. Yeah, I guess I'll take 3, see if they play something scary second main. If not, do I still Bitter Triumph? We're getting back a Volgavoth, so it's not quite Atraxa that's gonna let me refuel. So maybe I do hang on to the Triumph still. And then we can Zombify. Opponent just activates Mirrex to make a token. So we have Delirium enabled. And then I'll keep the Fear back now, I think. But then next turn Volgavoth might be able to attack twice to close out the game. Now our opponent does have a lot of permanents, in case they want to pay the ward on Volgavoth. They might be able to. But we still have Triumph to discard another one. And yeah, Sheltered by Ghosts is going to exile Volgavoth here, it seems. Sack 3 permanents. They will get exiled. But our opponent still doesn't have any amazing attacks. And then Bitter Triumph could get Volgavoth back as well. And a Gecko is their last card. So their opponent's trying to fight a good fight. But I don't think it's gonna work out too well for them. Discard Atraxa. Could technically wait for them to attack as well. But yeah, opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got pretty much the ideal hand. Even though we don't have any white mana, we may not need it. Facing a life gain deck. So yeah, turn 1 we can cut down. I'll wait and see if they maybe play a Najani's Pridemate. We can cut down in response to the trigger. Healer's Hawk. Alright, I'll cut down the Sanctifier then. And another one. We'll eventually be able to block them with Volgavoth. So don't have anything lined up for next turn. And there's Assess Channelers, so that's what I was trying to maybe cut down. And another Zombify. Alright, probably don't need 3 of them. Now, if our opponent does have a Sheltered by Ghosts, they might still be able to pay the ward with enough small creatures to sacrifice. There's now the Pridemate as well. So we are on the back foot, so if Volgavoth doesn't stabilize us, we're very quickly gonna die. Alright, Bitter Triumph is not a bad backup in case they can Shelter by Ghosts. But yeah, for now it's just Zombify and pass. Is this maybe a Convoked Knight Errant? Or is our opponent deciding what to sacrifice to the ward? Because if they sack 3 creatures, keep the Channeler for instance, then once we destroy the Channeler they don't even get to keep the +1 counters. So our opponent just plays a bunch of creatures out, keeps growing Channeler and Pridemate. And yeah, eventually they're going to be bigger than Volgavoth. But at least with Bitter Triumph and Volgavoth we can exile the Channeler. So I guess it wouldn't die in the first place. Torch the Tower could also be useful. So do we want to Bitter Triumph now? Or do we wait? Because it's very much possible our opponent had the Sheltered by Ghosts in hand but didn't want to commit to it. And now has a bit more sacrifice fodder for the ward, so then waiting could actually pay off. But of course the longer we wait, the more they can grow their creatures as well. But I might want to Torch the Tower the Vanguard, which is the only one that gains life without needing to attack. So I'll set some stops here. Another Vanguard. Okay, anything else? Opponent wants to go to attackers. I guess we'll torch one of them. And I'm probably fine to take my turn. Liliana helps. Can minus opponent loses a 1/1 flyer. Or we can plus to start attacking their hand. Maybe get the Sheltered by Ghosts out of there. And then still keep a Bitter Triumph. Problem is next turn our opponent can potentially start attacking with the Channeler. Although could still maybe chump with Fear of Missing Out as well.
No more distractions. Let's make this quick. We all have things we'd rather forget.
Alright, opponent's got a Pridemate, so we can cast that for 2 life. Still don't think I'm attacking, but we have a bit of life gain synergy with the Pridemate as well. So Vanguard triggers, we'll let that happen. And then I probably have to decide if I want to jump with Pridemate or Fear of Missing Out. Could honestly also take the trade and zombify back Valgavoth once again. Opponent's not even gonna attack. Alright, I guess we'll keep playing this game. Take my turn. Plus Liliana.
Don't overthink things.
Play a bat for 1 life. And keep up my interaction. And then Torch the Tower doesn't do a whole lot, just answers a Vanguard. Think we can do better. Finding an Atraxa, for instance, would help. Alright, so opponent's down to 1 card. It was a Linden, so it wasn't actually sheltered by ghosts after all. So that resolves. Now we have to do some thinking. Do we Bitter Triumph the Essence Channeler, or is it just Linden? Channeler would grow, but can trade for Valgavoth next turn and get it back. Yeah, the Pridemate would get pretty large if we let him keep Linden. So I think that's the priority. And then next turn I could technically cast Linden as well, but we'll see what happens. Alright, opponent just goes for it. In that case, I don't even need to block the Channeler. Can just block Pridemates. And then take 12 but gain 9, so that's fine. Add some more creatures to our collection. Take my turn. And then can we enable Delirium? We have land, instant, sorcery, no creature. So I guess in that case I can play Pridemate before attacking. Linden only gains life of white creatures attacking, so it's not super helpful. But yeah, I guess it's just Pridemates. And then I can minus Liliana.
I've always hated crowds.
And then attack. And play a bunch more creatures out. Suppose Vanguard I could have also played before attacking, since I had a little bit of life to spare. Okay, and then Linden can wait for next turn maybe. So yeah, ended up being a longer game, playing around a shelter by ghosts that was never there, but I think it paid off in the end. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems solid. And then another cut down doesn't seem great when we only have the 1 black source. Also need land 4 for rights, including a second black source, which we found. So now Fear of Missing Out, ditching Atraxa. Opponent red-whites and a Bitter Union, so they're also maybe reanimating. Opponent discards a Hair Apparent, so that's their strategy, fair enough. We do not have any sweepers, so the Hair could prove to be kind of a sticky threat. Opponent plays one. And then they probably have raised the past to get them all back out of the graveyard as well. I'll still cut one down now. And then write back Atraxa. Finding Volgavoth to exile their stuff could be useful. Did not actually find another reanimation spell, but we have another right in hand. So, enchantment, artifact, instant, untapped lands, and then Volgavoth as my creature, I think, makes sense. And then you can even discard it to hand size, so it's ready to be reanimated next turn. That's where the extra types from Fear of Missing Out and the doll can also come in handy. Could also maybe try and set up Delirium, so we can attack twice with Atraxa, which is almost game. Opponent passes with 2 mana up, so they might have removal if they chose not to play another Hare. So, checking our types, we have instant sorcery creature. No land yet. But I think we just attack and then write back Volgavoth anyway. And then we'll have a bunch of lethal flyers, even if they erase the past. I guess I do have to think about the implications of a board wipe. So I don't have to get back Volgavoth now necessarily, since next turn Atraxa could attack twice. So in that case, maybe just Doll, draw a card, Liliana plus.
A fight? And you think you can win?
And now a land can go, so we have Delirium. Opponent just discarded a land themselves. Alright, there's Raise the Past with triple Hare. They can give everything haste. But yeah, that's not going to be nearly enough. So our opponent passes. And there's a few ways we can do this, but with Delirium just attacking here would be enough, technically. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, missing a creature to reanimate. And white mana as well. Our interaction's okay. But yeah, maybe missing one too many elements. This is better, missing a reanimation effect still. But we have a few looks with our Surveil. And then I want to probably be able to curve Doll into Liliana, which means getting rid of the Parlor. So we have double black, some white mana. I suppose I could also keep Parlor, which still enables Blazemire Verge, and then we'll take one either way. I think we have more double black than we do have white spells, so I think this is still slightly better. And then a Blackleaf Cliffs. We will eventually need a 4th land, so maybe that's okay to keep. But could also be convinced to just dig for our reanimation spell right away. Opponent red-white, found our Zombify, so all according to plan. And opponent also Mardu colors. And a Virtue takes out our Doll. So it's possible we're doing the opponent a favor by plussing Liliana. But I'm still gonna go for it, since it doesn't seem like cutdown's gonna be particularly effective. And then now we have a Liliana, we can -2 2 turns in a row. The Hatcher, so it does look like maybe a Dinosaur Reanimator deck. Trying to cheat Galta into play and then get a bunch of hasty dinosaurs. So that could be scary. But and get back Valgavoth. And I'll keep plussing since we can maybe work our way up towards an ultimate.
Don't overthink things.
And then Valgavoth also now gets to steal whatever they discard. Hope they don't have a clean answer. Their own Liliana would be good. Opponent's gonna write back the Hatcher, which gives us the right in exile with Valgavoth. They do not have the best attack. And another right the draw. I'll keep on plussing here.
I'm tired of your secrets.
Final land. This one seems a bit better. And then I can reanimate the doll. Just to try and protect Liliana. Okay. And then I don't think we need to attack. Yeah, getting a Valgavoth in play early against another Reanimator deck can be very strong. Our opponents may be wondering what happens to the Hatcher because it also has a finality counter on it. Does it get exiled by Valgavoth or to the finality counter? But yeah, opponent's over it and scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Just missing a discard outlet, of which we have many, so I'll keep. And for now, keeping up Cut Down and Torch a Tower. So this hand would have been great against aggro, and our opponent does look to be an aggressive deck. They waited to play Heartfire Hero until turn 2, so it is possible they have a Shard Mage's Rescue in hand, in which case we can just wait and have 2 removal spells available and take it from there. So let's see. Would I want to double Cut Down or Cut Down Torch? I guess playing Courtyard either way makes sense. Yeah, I think we'll wait. See if they commit something else. They're just going to attack with a Heartfire Hero. I'll take one. See if they have a pump spell. They do. So yeah, it looks like they have a rescue to respond to this Cut Down. And then I can Torch a Tower and not take any damage. So that was a good exchange. A 3-4-2 in our favor. But we're still waiting on a way to discard Valgavoth. Opponent's got a Manifold Mouse. That's not going to survive for long. And I'll Cut Down now to play around more pump spells. Alright, Atraxa. So yeah, we've got about 14 discard outlets in the deck. All our 2-drops and Liliana. So those are what we need right now. And I don't think discarding to hand size is realistic at this point. But now we're in a position where we could top deck one of those effects and to reanimate in the same turn. Liliana, that will get the job done. And also have the flexibility of minusing, but I imagine Liliana plus Rite of the Moth is going to be the play. Opponent finally deploying more stuff out. Possible they had a Screaming Nemesis in hand and they were just kinda afraid of removal, waiting for a window to prevent us from gaining life. But we're gonna keep it simple. Liliana. Plus, and then between Valgavoth and Atraxa, we have enough mana where we can flash back Rite of the Moth. If we find another way to discard Atraxa's more immediate value. And our opponent doesn't appear to be playing the black version with Sellsword, otherwise I would be maybe more concerned about another Heartfire Hero dying and dealing damage. So I think we go for Atraxa first, just to make sure we find more resources. Opponent getting rid of a Burst Lightning, so they do have burn spells in hand. And then Zombify can be our sorcery. Instant, enchantment, artifact, creature. And lands may as well be untapped. Not bad. Opponent's going after Liliana, so that minimizes the chances that our opponent can straight up burn us out. Shard Mages rescue their own challenger. Do they also have a Sheltered by Ghosts, perhaps? They do not, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. And we get to rank up here. So yeah, this Mardu Reanimator deck is pretty straightforward. No fancy bells and whistles, just a very linear game plan. We've got 8 things to reanimate, 8 reanimation effects, and then the rest of the deck is discard outlets and interaction to try and survive all these aggressive decks in the format. Sometimes you will draw the wrong half of your deck and not find one of the missing pieces, and that's always going to be a risk with a combo deck like this, but when everything lines up, you're capable of doing something very powerful with relative consistency, and usually that's good enough against all these aggro decks. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.